Who are the best young quarterbacks in the game today? What's going on, football fans? It's Mitch here, back with another BR rankings. And in this live stream, I want to rank the best young quarterbacks, 25 or younger. I have a top 8 list, and we're also going to touch on the players that controversially did not make the list. So make sure to jump in that live comment section. Let me know which players you think deserve to be at the top of the list. Which young quarterbacks would you draft for your franchise? Who would you want as your franchise quarterback? Maybe you're a Bears fan, but you would rather have Jayden Daniels right now than Caleb Williams. Maybe you're a Panthers fan and you would rather have CJ Stroud, I hope, than Bryce Young. Okay, so let me know in the live chat. Let's kick it off with the players first that did not make the list. Honorable mentions. Players that haven't played at all that I think for some people might belong on this list if you're drafting quarterbacks right now for the future. But based on the evidence, we don't know how good Michael Penix is. But the thing with Penix is that he's sitting behind a veteran quarterback who on Thursday night just lit up the skies in Atlanta and had 500 yards. And Kirk Cousins seems to be the quarterback there for at least this season, perhaps next season. So Penix is going to be sitting on the bench, warming up, learning from a veteran of the game. And I think for Penix, as a pocket passer himself with a strong arm, I feel he's somebody that could really learn from Cousins in terms of the study habits, the day-to-day routine. I think that's really going to help him coming into the NFL. I would say that he does have the ability to come into that offense post Kirk Cousins and perform the same sort of tasks with a little bit more physical upside there, but perhaps a little bit more rougher around the edges in terms of accuracy, precision, and intelligence at the position. Obviously, he will need experience and playing time in his own right. Drake May is, of course, my franchise quarterback as a Patriots fan, and I'm very excited for Drake May. There's actually been a report that he might start this week against the Houston Texans. I thought he should have started against the Miami Dolphins. And we've heard all offseason, all season, that they are not playing their best quarterback in New England. Drake May was kind of realized as one of the quarterbacks in this draft that was maybe the most rough in terms of he needed work. He needed a little bit of progress with his feet, with his mechanics, things like that. He is one of the younger prospects entering the NFL, but he has so much upside in terms of his ability inside the pocket, power thrower of the football, athletic, big guy, came from a great athletic family. He has all kind of the tools and the skill set to be a great quarterback in this league. So those are your honorable mentions. In terms of players that missed the list, Aiden O'Connell of the Raiders is somebody that deserves a mention just because he had some success last season with the Raiders. They actually beat the Chiefs. It's the last time the Kansas City Chiefs have lost was a game in which O'Connell started. He was not the starter for the Raiders this year. Gardner Minshew beat him out for the job, which I kind of agree with. O'Connell last season wasn't exactly the ideal quarterback. He wasn't exactly putting up huge numbers. He wasn't the reason the Raiders were winning. They were winning because of defense and the running game. But this year, Minshew's kind of played himself out of that job, especially with that pick 6 against the Broncos. So he's going to get another chance. What I like about O'Connell, seems like his teammates really love him. I think he's good in the pocket in terms of, I think he's got proper NFL starter arm strength. I think he can make all the throws. The problem with him, I think, is more from a athletic standpoint. He is very limited. He doesn't give you anything post the first play. Then we have Will Levis. Will Levis, honestly, I could have ranked at number 8 because Will Levis, just in terms of pure passing ability, he deserves to be on the list because he has a super strong arm and he can make throws inside or outside the pocket. And his overall resume from last year to this year in terms of the quality of throws that he makes when he's at his peak of play, he can make like as good of a throw as anybody in the NFL. But to put it harshly, he is not the smartest quarterback in the NFL, and he makes critical errors at the worst time, like the worst errors you've ever seen. Fumbles, interceptions. He just loses you games, right? As talented as he is, he loses you games. And then last but certainly not least, a quarterback that many people thought would be on this list, and I chose a rookie over Anthony Richardson, who does not belong on my top 8. Anthony Richardson, the problem with him, guys, is I think the hype, especially from the fantasy football circle, has just completely suffocated all takes on his football play, because you watch him this year, you don't know if he's going to complete the pass. It's as simple as that. You watch it, and his completion percentage is extremely low. And I'm not a huge completion percentage guy, but when you're flirting with 50% for the entire season and every game you play, I don't know if you're going to complete the pass. You have some plays in week 1. You have a couple plays every week where, wow, what a play, what a run, what a throw. But just like Will Levis, he makes far too many critical bad errors. And then unlike Will Levis, which I think Levis is better in this regard, he is way more inaccurate, way more erratic, and he's way more inexperienced. He's barely played football. Maybe he'll have room to grow and get better for sure, and potential down the road. But there's a quarterback sitting at my number 8 spot that I think has already more experience, is a smarter player, doesn't lose his team games. And although he is not as talented as Anthony Richardson, he's a winning quarterback right now. And that is Bo Nix. Bo Nix is 24 years old. He had plenty of college experience, as we know. But right now, he is leading the Broncos to wins. And you could argue, okay, he's not the reason they're winning. Of course not. The defense, fantastic. Sean Payton, his management of games, fantastic. But unlike Anthony Richardson and Will Levis, he is not losing his team games. He is not making the boneheaded decision, even when he played a veteran quarterback. This week, Gardner Minshew lost his team the game. The Raiders had a chance to go up 17-3 against the Broncos, but a pick 6 where Minshew forced the ball changed the entire game. Nix, what I like about him, he does what the coach asks him to do. He throws the screen. He scrambles and throws the ball away. He'll run when he needs to run. He has enough athleticism to escape pressure. And I would argue that the Broncos offense is not a great situation to be in as a rookie quarterback. Their receivers don't get open, like at all. There's continuous third downs where there's tight window after tight window after tight window. And while Nix statistically is not super impressive, right? 866 yards in 5 weeks, 6 total touchdowns to 4 interceptions, right? A 71 passer rating. He is 3-2. He has been playing some of the toughest teams in terms of defense in football, and some tough spots. Like he played in Tampa, won. He's played against Seattle in Seattle, some kind of tough conditions for a rookie quarterback and tough atmospheres. I think he's been able to manage the game for his team and win the games for his team where he's been asked to make plays. It's a lot of running the ball. It's a lot of screens. It's a lot of RPO stuff. It's a little bit of scrambles. He doesn't have to do a lot of traditional downfield passing, but that's smart from Sean Payton on his part. I think if he had more weaponry around him, he would actually be able to produce down the field a little bit more. And we did see him throw the ball down the field for touchdowns against the Raiders. So he had his best game. That's why I'm including him on the list, because Bo Nix is coming off his best performance. At number 7, I have Justin Fields, who we kind of saw in the inverse on Sunday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys. At 25 years old, Justin Fields, honestly, to me, is what he is at this point. Like, super athletic guy, can be, and I think the area he's improved the most is he's improved a lot as a manager of the game. Like, with Chicago, he had a great defense last year, but he would still make some errors where he would take terrible sacks. Like, he would run backwards, try to scramble around. It's terrible sacks, right? He would fumble. He was loose with the football. He would maybe throw an odd interception. This year, he only has 1 interception on the season. I believe he has 1 or 2 or 3 fumbles off the top of my head, but 8 total touchdowns to 1 interception is exactly what the Steelers have asked of Justin Fields. He has a 70% completion percentage, 830 yards. He can run. He's very dynamic as a runner. And he adds a dimension to your offense that many of these quarterbacks can't. He is one of the best pure runners of the football at the quarterback position in the NFL that we've seen over the past 2 to 3 years. He is limited in terms of vision of the field. He struggles to read concepts. He misses open players at times, and you saw that against Dallas. There's times where I feel like he could throw the ball into a tight window, but he passes it up for the check down or for a scramble because he doesn't trust his ability to put the ball in the right spot or to make an error. And I think that's definitely magnified in a game like that, where it's very tight and every play matters and the defense on the other side is playing very good football. When the defense isn't as good and Fields has more open separation from his receivers, he can make that throw. He can make that play. He can be explosive. He can put up points. And I feel like in a stretch of time, you don't maybe want him for your starter the whole year, but for a stretch of time, you can kind of put him in an offense where he's running a lot of play action, throwing down the field, cutting the field in half, getting those flood concepts to one side of the field where it's easy for him to read it. It's easier for him to make the throw. And he's still learning as a passer, but I still feel right now like he kind of is what he is. I think he's going to be an athletic guy that can start, but you don't necessarily want your franchise quarterback to be Fields. At number 6, I have Caleb Williams, and we've got a comment. Long-term, Caleb better than Stroud, better than Daniels. So far, Caleb, only 22 years old. So far, what we've seen, Caleb Williams, and this is kind of what I'm judging it on, is so far what we've seen. I'm not judging it off of long-term, who would I draft? Although I think you could argue that you could put a little bit of both into this list. Caleb Williams has been disappointing, to say the least. I think that a lot of the areas of concern have come into play at the NFL level. His lack of willingness to play within structure, his deep ball, which is probably the worst I've seen all season by any quarterback. I mean, he has barely hit any deep passes. This past game, he did get DJ Moore on a couple 30-yard touchdowns, but the deep ball overall has, I think, really limited the explosiveness of the Bears offense. I think that his over-reliance on his feet to be able to buy extra time has actually hurt him. He has lost the most amount of yards to sacks in the NFL. And I would like to see some changes in the offense. I think Shane Waldron might not be the offensive coordinator long term. The offensive line is not ideal, but I don't think it's terrible. Like, if you just take the situation in Chicago's offensive line and you compare it to Houston's, there's not much of a difference there. It's just that one quarterback is more accurate with his throws. One quarterback is better at kind of making the smart move in the pocket, while Caleb, I feel, has struggled at the NFL level. Instead of running backwards, instead of stepping up, he does this thing where he kind of spirals and tries to make a play, and defenses are able to kind of get him, run him down, trip him up, while Stroud is somebody that operates the pocket, moves through the pocket, kind of like a Peyton or a Breeze or a Brady would in a kind of a more traditional pocket sense. So Caleb has had some moments. He does have the flashes. He does have the peak arm strength, off-platform throws, but in structure, decision-making, things I think he'll grow with. I would argue he's going to be better than number 5 long-term, but I still very much have my concerns short-term. There's just things that bug me about his quarterback play. Caleb has improved leaps and bounds every week. I don't know. He definitely had his best game against Carolina, but that was by far the worst defense he's played. So we'll see if he can continue to string together the performances like he did against Carolina, which again was kind of made for him to succeed, especially in a DJ Moore revenge game. But we'll see with Caleb. I just think he needs to kind of play a little bit more structurally and a little bit less like he played at USC, where he was kind of trying to play hero ball too much. At number 5, for now, I have Trevor Lawrence. 25 years old still, right? has struggled pretty much all season, has been borderline terrible at times this year. But we have also seen some really good things. You know, the Miami game, the first half, this past game against Indy when his season was on the line, he has struggled. But when you look at the schedule that Jacksonville has played, they have not played easy defenses, right? They played Buffalo in Buffalo. They played Cleveland. They played Miami in the Heat in week 1, who are not a bad defense, and they were healthier at that point. Then he plays this weak defense in the Colts, kind of like Caleb, and they both have their best game of the season, over 300 yards, multiple touchdowns. But the thing with Lawrence that I constantly see is I constantly see him being able to make these downfield powerful throws more often than a lot of quarterbacks in the league. I think what's Trevor Lawrence is struggling with is the easy throws. Sometimes he just misses like an easy throw that should keep the offense on pace. It feels like he struggles with his inner clock against pressure. He has a tough time. The offensive line, just like Caleb in Chicago, is not good, not ideal. But you would like to see a guy that was paid all this money, a generational prospect, so to speak, to be able to somewhat overcome that with your ability to get the ball out, your ability to play on time, your ability to keep the offense on schedule. Trevor Lawrence has also, not turned the ball over too often. He still has 6 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, 1,100 yards. He has more yards than Fields, than Nix, than Caleb. His completion percentage is lower than I've ever seen it at 59.6%. He has found a connection with Brian Thomas. He has a connection with Christian Kirk. He's been struggling a little bit without Evan Ingram. But the thing with Caleb, Trevor Lawrence, these guys both have great weapons, I would say, arguably. So there's not a lot different. I think Caleb will be better long-term overall, but I think for now, Trevor Lawrence is better. He has really deteriorated. His game was at peak levels in 2022. It felt like he was playing like a borderline top 10 quarterback. And then for whatever reason, that has dwindled down to being like, is he actually any good at all? Like, can we rely on this guy to win games? But I think he'll improve as the season goes on and they continue to face a little bit weaker opponents. Maybe this game was able to build his confidence. Lawrence is overrated and overpaid, says Did. No one's mentioned until yesterday that he lost 11 games in a row. People have been mentioning it a little bit. I have certainly never been a Trevor Lawrence stan or anything like that. I've never been a Trevor Lawrence guy. But I think there's been ups and downs throughout his entire career. I think that he has been disappointing. He has been overrated. I totally agree. I think 2022 was a great season for him, especially the back half of the season. I thought 2023, the first half of the season, was very much the same thing. So the difference between Trevor Lawrence, Caleb, Fields, and Bo Nix is the length of time at the NFL level we've seen him play good football. We've seen him play productive football. We've seen him play without, being bad. Caleb, moments through games, but no real consistency so far. Justin Fields, stretches of games where he has a lot of stats, but you would honestly look at his passing and you'd be like, there's a lot that, leaves to be desired there. And then Bo Nix, obviously rookie, struggling overall, which is to be expected, but at least he's winning sort of thing. So at number 5, I have Trevor Lawrence. Caleb probably not better than Lawrence, but he has a higher ceiling than Lawrence. I agree with that. Lawrence looks more like Daniel Jones than a generational prospect. I also agree with that. He is very much like Daniel Jones. I would also argue Daniel Jones has been better this year than Trevor Lawrence overall, but Daniel Jones not 25, so he doesn't make the list. At number 4, Jayden Daniels at 23 years old. Jayden Daniels, I debated number 3 with Jayden Daniels, but again, we just have not seen enough. And I feel like there's a thing in the NFL where the more teams see you, the more teams get film on your play, right? The more they actually are able to see you play, the easier it is for them to break you down, to be able to play against you, to be able to have pressures specifically for you, to have stunts, specifically for you, to have coverages specifically made for you. Like, even look at CJ Stroud. Like, you look at the differences, the splits in terms of like how much cover 2 they played last year versus how much cover 2 teams are playing this year. There's just defensive coordinators are dialing into what quarterbacks struggle with a little bit more. So for me to rank a quarterback that's only played 5 games, although at an extremely high level for especially a rookie, it's just hard for me to kind of like convincingly put him above the guys that are above him on the list, if that makes sense. So Jayden Daniels, incredible completion percentage, 77.1%. Now, that does come with a caveat and a grain of salt because he throws a ton of screens and a ton of RPOs and a ton of quick passes. So those are easier to complete, right? We don't necessarily completion percentage doesn't tell you where you're completing the pass, right? Like, it is a little bit easier to play in that style of offense. But then you look at the touchdown numbers, 8 total touchdowns, 106.3 passer rating, and 1,135 yards, which is 3rd on this entire list. So what's dynamic to me about Daniels is I think I've underestimated how like shifty and quick and elusive he is. He looks a lot. I actually saw a tweet earlier today. He looks a lot what the Browns thought Deshaun Watson was. But Deshaun Watson is like the bad version, like what Deshaun Watson used to be. Like, Daniels can elude pressure at a very high rate. He can make throws down the field very, very well on the run or in the pocket. And he's able to kind of make something out of nothing a lot. And I think that's been the most impressive area of his play. I actually thought against Cleveland, although his statistics kind of were down and he wasn't as good per se, the offense still played on schedule, still played really well, ran the ball really well. He made a couple big throws. I thought he made some of his most impressive plays of the season. I thought that one throw to Terry McLaurin, I believe it was, where he was able to escape the pressure to the right, kind of buy time, throw down the field, like off platform. That was something I didn't see him do at LSU all that much because honestly, he wasn't pressured that much at LSU. He wasn't really asked to do that all that much at LSU. And it was pretty easy for him to rather throw to an open Malik Neighbors, an open Brian Thomas Jr., who are both providing to be excellent players at the NFL level, or just to run because he's faster than 99% of people on the field in college. But at the NFL level, he's actually having to do more, and it actually is showcasing his kind of skill set a little bit more. But you've got to give credit to Cliff Kingsbury for putting him in an offense that perfectly suits Jayden Daniels. Like, a lot of outside the numbers throws, kind of limiting his capacity to read the middle of the field in that kind of clogged up, clouded area of the middle of the field, allowing him to throw, easy completions to get him in rhythm, have a running game for him, have an offensive line that they've spent money on, that they've put personnel into, and it's actually playing a lot better than expected. So Daniels is firmly in the MVP conversation right now, as Hayden brings up. But I would also argue he is still very young. He has not seen a lot of good defenses. The only real good defense he's actually seen is Cleveland. Besides that, he hasn't really played anyone very good in his NFL career. So I just want to see more of a lineage to his time in the NFL, see how he adapts and is able to evolve. Lambo says, I want to see Daniels play in December when he plays in the cold. That's also a fair point, although he plays in Washington. I mean, there will be wet games. I don't think it's going to be too bad for him. It's not like he plays in Buffalo, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. I definitely think he's not made for that type of weather. Maybe like, hopefully Drake May is, but we'll see. Like, he's not like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, but we'll see. I think the same sample size for Daniels is low, but he's played well. 4 seems fine. All right. People are agreeing. That's cool. He's only 23 too. Time to grow. At number 3, I've actually been very disappointed with Jordan Love this season. He's only played 3 games, but I have not loved what I've seen. I mean, the completion percentage speaks for itself. 56% completion. And that's kind of like, again, guys, I've brought this number up a number of times, but I feel like for whatever reason, this number is a lot more important than I've given it credit for like 10 years ago. Because it felt like even Alex Smith would have like a 75%, 70% completion. Like Brady, Breeze, Peyton, Ben, these guys, like it was Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning, Tony, you can go down the list. It was like given that they would complete the pass when it was open. You know what I mean? Like, some of these young quarterbacks can't make the throw when the guy is open. Like, we talked about Anthony Richardson, Will Levis. They spray the ball everywhere, bro. So, like, Jordan Love, that's my problem with him is one play, he'll make, like, one of the best throws I've seen in the week, like the one to Jayden Reed. And then the next play, he'll throw the ball in the dirt short of the receiver wide open on, like, a design screen. I'm like, what was that? Like, he just missed it. He has no rhythm to his game right now. And you really dive into that game against the Rams. They win the game. Credit to Jordan Love, all that. That's his first win of the year, though. They lost to the Vikings. They lost the Eagles. Two good teams, warranted. But I thought, like, honestly, Jordan Love, he's just too erratic right now. Like, he'll make a crazy throw, and then he'll make an incompletion that should be a completion. And I feel like all the skill is there, though. And that's why, and we saw it late last year. Like, he was incredible down the stretch. He was like a top 5 quarterback at the end of the season in terms of his performance. Like, he was scary in the playoffs. Like, he was diming up Dallas. He was putting up some nice numbers down the stretch. He beat the Chiefs. Like, Jordan Love was going off last season. And I think it was a combination of the scheme. And I think Matt LaFleur is a great play caller, a great schemer. And I think he gives a lot of layups to Jordan Love, and even down the field, like crossing routes that are open that Love has to hit. But Love can also have that ability to go above and beyond in terms of off platform in the pocket, like the ability to kind of have a pocket that is being pressed and being kind of condensed, and then the ability to throw kind of off platform backwards, throwing the ball accurately that way, having a nice touch on a deep ball, being able to throw, with different arm angles. Love is also very composed. He never seems to be kind of irritated by a game script or the way the game is going. He's constantly shown an ability to kind of come from behind and win, or the ability to kind of move on from mistakes. He has a very good demeanor with his play. 873 yards in only 3 games, though, is very impressive when you consider the current numbers people are putting up. 8 touchdowns in only 3 games is also pretty impressive. But something that has risen for Love is 5 interceptions on the season. He's been mistake prone a little bit more this year. He has been a little bit less accurate than you would like, a little bit more erratic than you would like. But overall, he has so much skill and he's proven it more than Jayden Daniels, that you have to put him at number 3. Malik Willis is a better fit for the Packers than Love is. I don't know about that. Malik Willis looked way better than I would have given him credit for, honestly, beforehand. He is a very athletic guy, but they very much manufactured the offense with Malik Willis in there. There was, the first game, they literally ran the ball like 60 times, and there's a reason for that. The second game, he played, the Titans, he played better in that game. I think he showcased his rushing ability. I think he made more throws in that game. But I think they kind of almost treated him like Justin Fields. They're like, okay, we're going to split the field in half. You're athletic. You have a strong arm. There's very much a similar kind of skill set there. But I was impressed with Malik Willis. I think he deserves a chance somewhere else potentially, because Jordan Love's their franchise guy. They paid him. Love just got back from an almost season-ending injury, cut him some slack. I agree, Chris, but I'm also talking about, the game against the Eagles. I didn't think he played that well. I just feel like when you watch Jordan Love, it's like there's explosives everywhere. There's splashes everywhere, but like drive to drive, he looks like such a different quarterback. I don't know what that is. It's strange to me to watch. At number 2, I have Brock Purdy, who is 25 years old. Brock Purdy, this season, I think he's shown some of his best moments of his young career. I think he's shown some of his best, level of play, especially in terms of as an athlete, his creation ability, and also as a runner. He has been more impressive this year than at any point of his career. At the same time, though, I thought against the Cardinals, he didn't play great. He was bad in the red zone. He definitely had 2 interceptions that were tipped at the line that he would like to have back. I would say this about Brock Purdy. I think he is much better than a majority of people give him credit for. I think he's much smarter. I think he's much more accurate. I think he's a much better athlete. I think he's tougher than a lot of people give him credit for. I think he's just a better quarterback than people give him credit for, because a lot of people just say it's the system, it's the offense, it's the weapons, it's the Avengers, all this stuff, right? But he has proven this year that even with Jawan Jennings as his wide receiver 1 or whatever, he was still able to go out there and put up big time numbers, right? Have they lost some kind of rather fluky games with weird endings? Yes. But I would also say, to kind of contrast that, I think too many Niners fans specifically defend him and kind of just blame everything on Kyle when things go wrong. If you're going to treat Brock Purdy like an elite player that deserves a big contract, you need to put more blame on Brock Purdy when the team loses. You know what I'm saying? Like, Brock Purdy had 2 interceptions on the game-winning drive. He had Kittle open, and he saw the blitz coming, or at least he should have, and he should have got the ball out quick. Instead, he waits to throw the ball. The ball is tipped by a blitz, and it's intercepted, right? Like, Purdy does have bad moments of slip-ups and things that a young quarterback should have in his career. He is still very young. Like, people fail to realize this was his first full offseason, right? Like, does he mostly do a great job of processing? Yes. There are things that I feel like he does struggle with. I think like Flores has done a great job of mixing up coverage with, heavy blitzing concepts. I think sometimes, there's just like, he gets a lot of credit when they win, but he also doesn't get a lot of credit when they lose. And I think that needs to change for Purdy, because I think at this point we've moved on from he's Mr. Irrelevant and he's just a product of the system. I think most people realize he's some level of good. And if you're going to treat him of some level of good, he deserves the same level of praise and the same level of judgment as somebody like Burrow or Lamar or Stroud or these other guys that we don't like say, oh, Mahomes, we don't say Andy Reid lost. We say Mahomes lost, right? Like, so I just think that scale needs to change a little bit, because it feels like Brock Purdy is a guy now at this point, in my opinion, that we've seen him make so many plays above and beyond the system. We've seen him make scrambles. We've seen him make great throws within the structure of the offense. We've seen him lead comebacks. We've seen him win against everybody pretty much. Like, we need to treat him a little bit differently. And I think that's where we're missing the point. I'm a Niner fan, but if Daniels keeps playing like this, I'd put him over Purdy. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you look at Purdy's record, you look at Purdy's production. I think Purdy has like the most, man, what was the stat? But I think he has like the best passer rating, I think. I think that's the stat. Best passer rating in like the first however many starts, first 3 years or something. Like, Purdy has put up outrageous numbers. Like, don't deny that either. Right? Has he been in an ideal situation? Yes. But has he put out outrageous numbers? Has he won a ton of games? Yes. They have, until this year, with these last couple of recent Rams and Cardinals losses and the Vikings, like, they have been pretty much winning like 9 out of 10 games with Brock Purdy. Xavier Taylor says Purdy is good and using his legs more this year, but he is legit has the easiest offense to play in. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I would just say that I don't think we've ever seen a quarterback produce like Purdy has produced within this offense. Besides Matt Ryan, who Matt Ryan was pretty much established as a borderline Hall of Fame type of quarterback. So at number 2, I have Brock Purdy. At number 1, clearly, obviously, CJ Stroud. He's only 23 years old right now this season. Even if you just take this season, like, he has the most yards among everybody on this list. He has the third best completion percentage. He has 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. His touchdown numbers aren't great. Honestly, I don't know really why, but only 7 touchdowns and a 98 passer rating. So his numbers, not amazing, but he does have the most yards. I think something with Stroud that's frustrating as a fantasy owner of CJ Stroud, he throws for a lot of yards, but he doesn't throw for a lot of touchdowns. That's kind of annoying. But otherwise, CJ Stroud's an incredible player. I think he's in the MVP discussion. The team is 4-1. And when you watch the Texans play, they have gotten in their own way continuously. I mean, their O-line is terrible. Like, they can't block. like the run game, the pass game, there's pressure all over Stroud on almost every drop back, especially when it's like a traditional drop back pass. He's constantly having to extend plays and make throws down the field. He has been without his weapons at times and managed to still win or at least make games, rather competitive. The only game he kind of played poorly was against the Vikings, but the entire team played poorly. Tank Dell's been out. Mixon has been out. Nico Collins missed the second half of the Bills game. Stroud was still making plays, in all those games, despite that. Also, on top of that, last year, you look at that same situation. You look at his ability to kind of overcome pass protection errors. You look at his ability to protect the football and largely not make mistakes. You look at his ability to escape sacks and not take sacks in general. You look at his ability to throw the football with accuracy, with touch, with the placement that I think is absolutely top 3 in the NFL. His ability to put the ball wherever he wants it, no matter where his feet are at, no matter where he's at in his progression. His ability to put the ball left, right, top, low, wherever it may be, is just out of this world good. I think him and Joe Burrow kind of separate themselves, maybe Justin Herbert as well. Their ability to throw the ball like just absolutely precise in the right location is through the roof. He's incredibly smart. I think he does need to get a little bit better at the line of scrimmage with certain things. I think he needs to get the ball out a little bit faster at times. But for a young quarterback, he is very good in those areas. Like a lot of young guys right now in the NFL are so reliant on their athletic ability. And I think the rare thing you see with Stroud is you can clearly see that for a majority of his career and his growing up and like high school and college, he was a pocket quarterback that has now kind of evolved into a pocket quarterback with the skill to extend plays at like an extremely high level. So it's a rare combination of having a player that has the mechanics, has the accuracy of a really good pocket player, but also having the extension ability of some of these other quarterbacks, like, maybe not quite Lamar or Allen and things like that, or Mahomes, but pretty darn close. Like he's right underneath that level, right? So CJ is phenomenal. I think at some point in the NFL, he will be the best quarterback in the league. And I mean, it could be by the end of this year. Like it really could be by the end of this year when you look at the landscape of the NFL. If he gets a little bit more help from his offensive coordinator, calling less runs on early downs and allowing him to play, not in 3rd and 12 every play, and then also a little bit more help from his offensive line, I think you'll see his numbers skyrocket. I think people out there kind of look at his situation and they think it's absolutely ideal. But he would be one of the players that I would say, like, look at Stroud, like watch him play on a weekly basis, and you would see that he's actually having to overcome a lot of what's going on in Houston. And he did that last year as a rookie. There's a reason the Texans went from the worst franchise in the NFL to a playoff team. And it wasn't just DeMeco Ryans. So Kurt says, I'm a Niner fan, or I already read that one. Grayson says, do you think 1 through 4 are interchangeable? Daniels could be higher. No, I don't. I think Stroud is clearly first. I think Purdy is clearly second, based on overall production and just career so far. I think Love and Daniels are interchangeable, but I would say that depending on how high you are in Daniels, like, again, guys, Daniels has played 5 games. So I'm not exactly like there yet to put him in the same conversation with a guy that's been to a Super Bowl, another NFC championship, and CJ Stroud. I'm not quite there yet, but Daniels could get there. I think I need to see a little bit more. Number 7 says Stroud, Daniels, Purdy, Love should be the order. Xavier says CJ needs to clean up some of his fumbles, but ball placement is top 5 in the league. Fumbles. I mean, I haven't noticed it being worse than the average quarterback, but I could be wrong if I dove into the numbers. Tan Demand says he is probably the most accurate football thrower at the moment, the modern Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, they don't throw the ball very similarly. I actually think Stroud kind of exhibits more of Brady in the way that he throws the ball. They don't throw the ball the same way. If you watch them mechanically speaking, I think Stroud throws more like Brady does, but I agree in terms of like ball placement. He's near the top of the league. I think the same conversation of Joe Burrow. Put Purdy on the Commanders and he won't be top 6. I disagree. I don't necessarily know, other than speed, what Daniels does that is necessarily better than Purdy. Even though he's been amazing in his first, again, like Daniels has great numbers, but Purdy has put up those numbers as well. Granted, in a better situation, but I mean, what necessarily does Daniels do, especially again, guys, like a lot of his production has come from the system. So you can't even really say that it's been an individual just taking over games all the time, making crazy plays. Like how many of his yards have come from, I don't know the stat, but how many of his yards have come from like passes within 2 seconds where he's throwing the ball to the running back or to the slot receiver, like Luke McCaffrey breaking a tackle and getting a first down. Or he has made great throws. He has made extension plays. He has made pocket passes. But again, sample size matters. Don't let the hype get too out of control just yet. We need to see a little bit more. But the Commanders are a great story. I never saw this coming. At all. So hopefully they keep it up. It would be crazy if this division, came down to a 3-way race between Dallas, the Eagles, the Commanders. But that's my list, guys. Just to recap: Stroud, Purdy, Love, Daniels, Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, Justin Fields, Bo Nix. Honorable mentions: Drake May, Penix, Levis, Richardson, and O'Connell missed the list. And Bryce Young, I didn't even mention because honestly, I don't want to put Panthers fans through the pain of having to compare Bryce Young to the other quarterbacks. And shout out to Joe Flacco, who's playing as young as ever. It's Mitch. Shout out to you guys. Thank you so much for watching and commenting. You can check me out also on YouTube, The Bottom Line View, and you can check me out every single Monday here on the BR app for Monday morning reactions, talking about a lot of different things, from quarterback rankings to power rankings to what just happened this past week in the NFL. It's Mitch. Peace, guys.